Let's go. All right. Hello, everyone. Today we have Brian Castle from Audience Ops. Brian is a founder of Audience Ops, and Audience Ops provides content marketing services to businesses, mainly a lot of startup companies. He also has an online course called Productize, which teaches service-based businesses how to offer flat fee packages and productize their services to save them more time. Welcome, Brian, to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Alma. This is fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Brian, start out with telling us who you are and tell us what Audience Ops does exactly, because I kind of gave an introduction, but I know you guys do a little bit more than what I had mentioned.
Sure. So, speaking of productized services, I would consider Audience Ops to be a productized service. We kind of offer productized content as a service to we work mostly with businesses, mostly online businesses who sell software, some sell services and that sort of stuff. And we basically power their blogs. So my team of writers and managers and editors, assistants, we plan out their calendar of topics. We write and draft topics for their blog. We schedule them, we publish them. Then we also write their email newsletter and social media to promote those topics. And so we manage their content marketing specifically through blog content from end to end. And our clients pay on a monthly basis for that service. And we've got very really standardized processes, and the team is very, we have different roles on the team who everybody does a specific part of that process. And it works pretty well. It's been growing pretty steadily for the last 2.5 years. So.
That's great. So what is your stories? How did you get into this? What made you start a company like this?
Sure. So Audience Ops, I would consider to be like my second real product type business. The one before that was called Restaurant Engine. And that was a kind of a productized service for the restaurant industry where we provided websites, a hosted website builder and website hosting service for restaurants. And that was kind of a combination of some software and service. Really, Audience Ops is as well. We have some software built into it as well to help automate and streamline the process. I like that combination of using software, building our own software for certain pieces, and then having people do manual service tasks in a very standard way. So I did that with Restaurant Engine, which I started back in, I guess that was around 2011, and then I sold that business in 2015, and that's when I started Audience Ops. Before all that, I was doing freelance web design work. I did a lot of front-end design and development, and I worked a lot with WordPress, and that experience is what kind of led me into building a web design product for restaurants. Along the way, I've dabbled in different other projects like WordPress themes, and actually today we sell plugins through Audience Ops, WordPress plugins. We've got a SaaS that we're building. So I try to do a variety of different products on the side, but most of my time is spent working on the Audience Ops content service today. And then throughout the years, I've always been writing and publishing content on my personal site, castjam.com, where like you said, I teach the Productize course there. I host 2 podcasts. One is the Productize podcast, where I do interviews kind of similar to this one. And then my other one is Bootstrapped Web with my friend Jordan Gal, where we just kind of talk week to week, giving behind the scenes updates of what we're working on. I just try to mix it up and do a lot of different things.
Okay. So you're doing a lot of things. Now I want to ask you, let's get into productizing. What does it mean to productize a service? Because I really, I heard about you through a podcast. I think it was you were on someone else's podcast. I think it was Matt Englott's podcast.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, I found your podcast, and you talk about, your whole journey of how you started out offering services when you were developing your websites, websites for other businesses or restaurants. And I guess you transitioned from doing kind of customized work to flat packaged work. What made you make this shift, and what what did you see was the benefit and the reason why you decided to go that route?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for several years, I used to work at a web design agency. That was kind of my first real full-time job. I was there for maybe 3 years, and then I left that in 2008 to become a freelance web designer. And so basically from 2008 up until really into like 2012 or so, I was doing freelance web design work, project to project. And a lot of those projects, I was just doing everything myself, from design, development, client management, all that fun stuff, to occasionally I started to grow it and bring in other contractors, other freelancers, and team up on projects. And that to a certain extent helped me grow a little bit. Like I could take on more projects simultaneously than I did all myself, but I was still hitting up against a ceiling, like a limit. And I increased my prices year after year. And, but even that hit a limit as well. Cause once you go from like $500 websites to $2,000 websites to $10,000 to $20,000 projects, those work out fine, and it's a good way to make a decent living. But to go beyond that ceiling, you really get into like the agency realm. And I wasn't really interested in building like a big agency where we do all sorts of custom work. And one kind of hurdle that I had with that was, how would I get enough business, enough clients to fuel a huge agency with lots of designers and developers and project managers? And the challenge that I had with that was the fact that I was doing so many different projects for so many different clients. Like I had clients who were universities, restaurants, lawyers, e-commerce stores, artists, nonprofits. Like we were doing so many different projects and different types of like websites for them, that I didn't know how to go out and get more clients, because I didn't know who I was looking for. We worked with everybody. Or I worked with everyone. And so when I started to understand that, like, in order to actually do marketing, any sort of marketing, whether it's content or advertising, I would need to know who I'm targeting. And I'd have to have a very specific idea of one type of business owner that I can target, and then find more and more of that same person. And that's kind of what led me into the idea of building something like Restaurant Engine, where we're providing a standard service, a standard template website with a few standard features like a menu and photos and hours and a contact form and that kind of stuff. And like I knew that template or that set of features solves the problem for the vast majority of restaurant owners. And then I can just go out and find more and more restaurant owners who need that service. So that was kind of like the first light bulb moment where it was like, okay, I actually have something that I can go out and actively sell and actively market. Whereas before, for years, I was just doing freelance work, which was just kind of hoping for referrals to come in. And it's great when they come in, but I can't like step on the gas and get more of them.
Right. So I actually I'm a student of your Productize course. So I took the course and I learned so much. I think that course just made me look at business completely different. So what is it that I guess we're kind of jumping ahead, but I guess from that experience, you started productizing the Restaurant Engine, right? It was Restaurant Engine. And then you were able to sell that company, and then you started Audience Ops. So tell me about that transition as far as, streamlining your whole just kind of journey into learning how to streamline and what the benefits are when you start automating the processes. Because you have a service, it's not like you have products. Like, how do you automate people? Because you have people that are doing the work, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everybody loves to talk about automation today, and that's the hot buzz term and everything. But automation is everything in building a business that can sustain itself. But automation doesn't necessarily have to be with software. It can certainly be done with people, and it's just as simple as writing standard operating procedures that certain people will follow. And you just hire the right types of people with the right skill set to fill very specific roles in your production process. And once they're in that role, they follow the procedure. Now, of course, that sounds very clean and easy and can just do it tomorrow, which that's certainly not the case. It takes a long time to build up those procedures and to refine them and try out different things and go in different directions, of course. That's certainly the path that I've taken with it. But I mean, in terms of benefits, like if you think about Restaurant Engine, like for me early on, I was doing everything myself, from sales to bringing on a customer to setting up their website for them, all the customer support. This was all me all the time. I mean, I literally remember like a Sunday afternoon, I was manually copying in food menu items from this diner in Utah who recently signed up. I was setting up their website and, like every item on their menu, I was like copying and pasting the prices and the names and putting it into our menu system. And I did that for hundreds of websites just myself before I started hiring people to fill out those roles. Same thing with the marketing. Like we did content marketing pretty heavily, and I was writing articles for restaurant owners early on.
So you were doing all the marketing, blog writing, and finding and like onboarding clients, and also building websites.
Yeah.
How the heck did you do it?
Well, that was early on, right? Like that was the very beginning. I was bootstrapping it. I was working nights and weekends and like hustling, and early on I didn't have the budget. Like it was making a little bit of money, but it wasn't enough to start hiring people. But eventually it got there, and I also self-funded with money coming in from consulting work, web design work. But the key aspect was, like early on in the first few years, my mindset was like, okay, how can I remove myself from every piece of this process? So first I hired a virtual assistant to help with that data entry stuff. As we onboard new clients, that person helped with setting up their website, inputting their food menus and their photos and all that stuff. So I got out of that. And then I brought on a few more VAs who helped with customer support and answering like tier 1 questions before they escalate to me. Then I hired a content writer and I put together a whole content team to handle writing our weekly blog content and sending it out to our email list and social media. So I stopped doing that piece. And then later on in the business, I hired a salesperson to take over all those sales calls. And so then as I brought on each person, I was documenting the processes that they follow and putting tools in place that they can use so that we do everything in a very standard way, following the same template, the same process. And that's what allowed me to finally build a business that could actually run without me being there day to day doing the work. And we're still, earning revenue and income and delivering the service to clients. Like I could actually go take a vacation with my family for once and not have to take off work. I mean, most freelancers, I used to take vacations as well when I was freelancing, but that would mean taking a week off of work and not getting paid for that. So that was initially my goal with Restaurant Engine, was just to get it to a point where it can basically run without me. Of course, I still worked on it. I still worked on like new marketing campaigns and building out the product and that sort of stuff. But later on, as it got near the end of my time running it, for various other reasons, I wanted to get into a different business. And so the only reason I was actually able to even sell that business was because of all those processes and systems and people that I put in place. Otherwise, a new owner would just not be able to come in and run a bit. Like they wouldn't know what to do unless we had all those processes in place. And that was the first time it kind of occurred to me that I went from selling my time, doing project by project, which was that business didn't really have a value of its own, to running Restaurant Engine, which actually had a value that another person can come in and take ownership of. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm really happy that you talked about that, because I try to work with business owners and really teach them the value of outsourcing and doing project management. And I help people with Agile, because I'm really a big advocate of using the Agile method, Scrum. And what Scrum does is that actually you build a team of people who become self-organizing over time, to the point where they kind of just run on their own. the team because it's set up a certain way. So I'm just curious, what type of project management systems do you use? Do you use like Trello? I use Trello a lot.
Yeah, we do use Trello quite a bit. I used it a lot in Restaurant Engine. We use it a lot today in Audience Ops for various things, mainly our production line of articles. So we have lots of articles that we're producing every single week, and from every stage of production, from like topic to draft, edit to setting up in WordPress, delivering to the client. It goes through Trello that way. But we've also built our own software, which we're rolling out this year called Ops Calendar, which we still use Trello a bit, but it kind of takes over the management of a content calendar, and it incorporates social media scheduling and scheduling blog posts and those processes, those step-by-step processes, and automatically delegating to people. So I designed and built this software with a team built around our production process and audience ops, and especially for agencies who are serving clients with content. It's really built for that.
Oh, that's great. Are you going to sell that to people so that other businesses so they can?
Yeah. So we just started rolling that out a few months ago, and we have customers on it using it, agencies using it for their clients.
Oh, wow.
And we use it for all of our clients as well inside Audience Ops. And I've been working with some developers on that to build it, and you do Scrum and Agile, and that's actually something that I'm trying to become better at, and because that's kind of new for me. Like I've been building these service businesses with processes and putting teams in place, but building a new software product is a very different process.
Yeah. Software, the reason why Scrum is so good for software, because Scrum is really good for complex projects that is a lot at stake. And when you're building an online tool, a mobile app, or any type of tool, a SaaS product, there's so much that has to be in it, and you have to test every feature, every functionality, right? Mm-hmm. That whole development and testing cycle, Scrum really addresses that. So I'm just a big fan of Scrum. I always try to tell people they should do it, especially like startup and small business, mid-sized businesses, on online businesses like yours. You can actually take advantage of it, because I've managed Scrum teams where developers, a QA, or architects, we were all over the world, and we were still able to do it. And you can use tools like Jira.
Yeah.
Trello is good. The only thing about Trello is that you can't, I don't think you could put estimates, because with we take every feature and we assign an estimate, so we can estimate how much we can do.
We use for the developers on the software product specifically. So we use GitHub to manage the development issues, mm-hmm. but we started using a tool called ZenHub, which is it's like a browser plugin, and it plugs into GitHub. And so it actually adds like a Trello-like board within using GitHub issues. And so that's what the developers and I have been using, and it's
ZenHub. I want to write it down.
Yeah, so
I haven't heard about it.
anyone who's using GitHub issues, which is really popular if you're doing developing software, their issue system by default doesn't have like a Trello like Kanban layout. So so that's what ZenHub adds, and then it also adds like milestones, and you can put estimates on each issue. And so we started using some of those, but really just mainly being able to see like, okay, these are the and like I worked with the developers to we kind of adapted our own version of Scrum. I think it may not be strictly exactly how Scrum works, but it's
maybe like a Kanban.
It's Kanban, but we agree that like this week, these are the 2 or 3 big features that you guys are going to be working on. And then we have a backlog of features that just gets longer and longer, that we know that we're not going to try to squeeze that in. We'll get to it a little bit later, but these are the features that we're kind of focused on right now.
Okay. Well, Brian, me and you have to have another phone call after this so I can kind of show you what you can do. All right. With Scrum. It's really simple. Awesome. Cool. That sounds good. So Brian, this is really great. I'm so glad that you shared this information. This is kind of like a short show, so we don't have too much time left, but I just wanted to ask you a few questions. What would you recommend for people trying to start a new business? Maybe they offer accounting, bookkeeping, maybe they do social media management, marketing, whatever. How can someone move from, kind of just doing whatever the clients want them to do to being very specific with their clients and saying, okay, this is what we offer at this amount of money, this is what you're going to get? Because I guess for some people, it may be hard to make that transition.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's very hard. And I think the thing to understand is that it doesn't have to happen overnight. You don't have to say, okay, tomorrow is the day that I'm going to stop doing all that other work and I'm going to start doing this one productized offer. Excuse me. You can phase it in over time. So, and that's certainly what I did. I phased in my focus on Restaurant Engine, and I slowly phased out my general consulting work. It took like a year or two to really, phase that fully out. So yeah, I think the thing to start to move towards is to really understand or start to focus in on who is your best customer, who's your most ideal customer, what type of business are they in, what type of industry are they in, what size of business are, if you're selling to businesses, that is, and start to define who your most ideal customer is. Because you've probably worked with tons of different varieties of people from different walks of life, different industries, different sizes, and there's probably pros and cons to each, and you have to figure out which one is the most valuable for your business, which one are you just most comfortable working with. And then once you identify who that is, then you can start to identify, well, what's the number one problem that me or my business is capable of solving for that exact customer. And then just start to hammer that home and put all your marketing around, hey, you have this problem, we have the solution to this problem, and here are all the benefits, here's what's included, and here's a price tag. And that's oversimplifying it a little bit, but that's kind of where you want to move toward. And a good way that I like to think about it is, if a random client were to come to you today and say, I've got a pretty decent budget. Budget is not really an issue for me. I know that I have this problem with my business. I don't really know what I want, and I don't really know what I need, but you tell me, which is like the dream, right? Like most clients come to you and be like, I want a logo that's this big and it's got to do spinning. It's got to have background music and all this stupid crap, right? So most clients try to demand very specific things, and then you get into this back and forth where you're kind of pushing back and you're negotiating over price and deliverables and all this stuff. But just imagine that somebody in this position who you know really well, you've done a lot of research, you've worked with them before, you know that they have this problem, and then they just came to you and they said, you tell me what I need. Just lay it out for me. What's the most ideal solution? That's your chance to put together your most ideal solution, your package of services that that would be your best recommendation, and that's what they would accept. And that recommendation can form your productized service offering. For X $1,000, you get A, B, and C, and this is all designed to help you solve this specific problem that I can describe in detail because I know who this customer is and why they're dealing with that.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot of listeners and viewers would find that really valuable. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you once again. Really appreciate it. If you want to find out more about productizing your services, you can visit, what is your website that you want to share?
Yeah, my site is castjam.com. That's where I do a lot of my writing. My newsletter is there, and the Productize course is there. And then my business today is audienceops.com.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thanks, Alma.
Take care. Cheers.